Your shadow follows you everywhere. In Jam, it bends when you bend. It stretches when you stretch. It behaves exactly as it should, silent, harmless, and completely loyal. But today, something is wrong. You step outside into the bright sunlight, and for the first time in your life, your shadow moves before you do. It twitches. It trembles. Mem is part. And then, like a sheet of darkness peeling off the ground, it rises. At first, you think it's your eyes playing tricks on you, but then the temperature drops, your breath fogs, the air around you tightens like an invisible fist, and your shadow lifts its head, your head but distorted, stretched, flickering like a living silhouette made of darkness. Then it lunges, not with claws or teeth, but with something far more terrifying. Right, a tearing gravity like pull that drags the heat out of your skin and steals the light from the world around you. Grass withers beneath it. Concrete frost cracks under its weight. Your phone screen dims instantly as if the very photons are being swallowed. Suddenly, you understand your shadow is no longer just an absence of light. It's become a predator feeding on energy, warmth, and movement. Every step you take creates new angles of darkness, and every angle becomes another place where it can strike. Imagine billions of people across the world stepping outside and discovering their own shadows trying to consume them. The question is no longer. The question is no longer. The question is no longer. The question is no longer, what is a shadow? What happens if the dark part of you becomes dangerous enough to kill you? Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your question below. Shadows are one of the simplest phenomena in nature. Not objects, not beings, not forces. They're simply regions where light cannot reach. But in this hypothetical scenario, we twist one rule of physics. What if your shadow wasn't just an absence, but a presence? Imagine a world where shadows gain a physical, energy draining property similar to a microscopic black hole, but far weaker and selective. They can pull heat, motion, and even light from anything they touch. Suddenly, your shadow becomes an active, hungry field of darkness that's tethered to you but no longer under your control. Scientifically, this idea challenges everything we know about optics, thermodynamics, and energy conservation. A shadow with physical influence means we've entered a world where darkness behaves like a particle field, capable of interacting with the environment. It's like giving the absence of light its own physics. This scenario becomes even more interesting when we consider how shadows behave. They stretch, shrink, bend, duplicate, and overlap based on the angle of the light source. If each of those moving shapes carried a dangerous effect, daily life would turn into a constant battle against your own silhouette. In this video, we'll explore what happens step by step from the moment shadows turn hostile, to the environmental transformations, to the long-term survival of humanity. Now that the stage is set, we can dive deeper into the science of this terrifying world. The first major consequence, energy drain becomes a global threat. The moment shadows gain the ability to drain energy, the world enters a new kind of crisis, one that doesn't start with explosions or earthquakes, but with silence. A soft, creeping silence that spreads across cities as shadows pull heat and light from everything they touch. Imagine the first hour. People walking outside suddenly feel a cold numbness rising from their feet. Not frost, not sickness, but a perfect, unnatural cold, like standing next to a vacuum that steals warmth instead of air. Scientists would quickly discover that shadows behave like localized entropy sinks, ripping thermal energy from surfaces. On the street, car tires freeze to asphalt, metal turns brittle, plant leaves curl and blacken from extreme temperature drops. Even sunlight, which should overpower darkness, appears strangely weaker near shadowed areas, as if the shadows absorb photons before they can even reflect. To understand this scientifically, think of shadows acting like a field similar to a weak black hole, except instead of gravity pulling matter inward, they pull usable energy outward. This isn't magic, it's a twisted extension of thermodynamics. If something could artificially increase entropy at a hyper-accelerated rate, it would rip order and energy out of anything around it.
Real world parallels exist. A material that absorbs almost all light, like Vantablack, creates the illusion of a void. But now imagine a material that not only absorbs light, but also steals heat. Your shadow becomes that material, but mobile, reactive, and directly attached to you.
In the first week, hospitals would report mysterious cases of hypothermia on warm days. Engineers would find machines stalling because shadows drain kinetic energy from moving parts. Even sound begins to die in areas of dense shadow, as the energy of vibrations gets stripped away. Humanity's first realization becomes clear and terrifying. The Richter scale, which has technically been replaced by the moment magnitude scale, measures the strength of an earthquake. Since we usually hear about earthquakes with ratings somewhere between 3 and 9, a lot of people probably think of 10 as the top of the scale and 0 as the bottom. In fact, there is no top or bottom to the scale. But even if 10 isn't the top of the scale, it might as well be. A magnitude 9 earthquake already measurably alters the rotation of the Earth. The two magnitude 9 plus earthquakes this century both altered the length of the day by a 9 plus earthquakes this hunted by a physics glitch that lives in your own outline. The second major consequence: environmental and planetary collapse. As shadows continue draining energy from their surroundings, the crisis transforms from a personal threat into a planetary scale catastrophe. What begins with individual humans freezing or weakening near their own silhouettes quickly snowballs into a global environmental breakdown. The chain reaction starts with temperature imbalance. Every shadow on Earth, billions of them, becomes a tiny thermal vacuum. Individually, each one might drain only small amounts of heat, but collectively, they form a planet wide network of energy sinks. Daytime temperatures begin to drop by several degrees, then by 10. Within weeks, ecosystems collapse. Plants struggle first. Shadows growing beneath leaves rip away the thermal and light energy plants need for photosynthesis. Entire forests start to dim as their own shadows choke the life out of them. Crops fail. Grassy landscapes turn into frostbitten plains even under direct sunlight. Next, the oceans begin to change. Waves create constantly shifting shadows beneath their crests. With every ripple, those moving patches of darkness pull energy out of the water. Surface temperatures plummet. Marine life migrates desperately toward warmer currents, but the shadows follow them. Coral reefs bleach, fish stocks crash, and entire food chains crumble. Cities face a different disaster: infrastructure breakdown. Buildings cast massive shadows over roads, power plants, and vehicles. In those shaded zones, materials contract, weaken, and crack. Power lines snap from thermal stress. Bridges fracture as their shaded undersides freeze solid. Solar panels become nearly useless wherever their own shadows fall. Scientists attempt solutions: floodlights, reflective surfaces, and even artificial multiple light systems to diffuse shadow intensity. But every new light source creates new shadows and more danger. Soon, the planet enters a state of constant survival mode. People crowd into artificially illuminated domes where shadows are minimized, but the cost is enormous. Even inside, the faintest silhouette can still drain energy. The planet is no longer being shaped by gravity, weather, or climate, but by the hungry geometry of darkness. Long term results: a world ruled by living darkness. As months turn into years, Earth settles into a new and haunting equilibrium one, where humans no longer fear animals, disasters, or disease as much as they fear the position of the nearest light source. Shadows have become the dominant environmental force, constantly reshaping landscapes, climates, and human behavior. The long term effects are catastrophic. First, the global climate stabilizes at far colder levels. With shadows continuously draining thermal energy, Earth effectively becomes a planet sized freezer. The equator feels like a mild winter. The poles become unimaginably hostile. Glaciers expand. Oceans shrink as surface water freezes, trapping marine life below impenetrable ice sheets. Human civilization adapts in strange ways. Cities move underground, where artificial lighting can be controlled with extreme precision. Homes are redesigned with rounded, glowing walls to eliminate sharp angles that create stronger shadows. Clothing evolves into bright, light emitting fabrics that project diffused illumination around the wearer, softening or erasing silhouettes. But even with innovations, humanity remains vulnerable. Every person is still physically connected to their shadow. It stretches behind them like a silent predator waiting for a chance to drain their life energy. Any flicker of light, any shift in brightness can cause a shadow to sharpen and attack. Over generations, humans might begin to evolve. People with naturally lighter pigmentation, reflective skin oils, or lower metabolic heat output survive slightly longer in shadow heavy environments. These traits slowly spread. Future humans may look strangely luminous compared to us, their biology adapted to minimize energy loss when darkness touches them. Meanwhile, animals undergo their own transformations. Nocturnal species grow smaller and reflective. Diurnal species cluster under direct sunlight, moving in synchronized patterns to reduce total shadow exposure. Predators and prey redefine their arsenals: not camouflage, not speed, but light management. The world becomes divided into two realms: the safe zones of pure light and the killing fields of shadow. If shadows remain active for centuries, Earth transforms permanently into a glowing architecture civilization fighting an endless battle against darkness. In this hypothetical world, everything changed the moment shadows gained the power to drain energy. Humanity watched as a simple absence of light transformed into a planet wide predator, one that didn't roar, didn't chase, and didn't sleep. It simply existed, quietly stealing warmth, movement, and light from everything it touched. It began with individuals freezing in broad daylight, machines stalling, and plants withering beneath their own silhouettes. Then the crisis escalated. Cities cracked from thermal stress, oceans cooled into frozen landscapes, and ecosystems collapsed under the relentless pull of hungry darkness. Every shadow became a silent vacuum, a microscopic entropy engine reshaping the world faster than nature could adapt. Over time, humanity was forced to change or die. Civilizations moved underground. Architecture evolved into glowing, smooth, shadowless designs. Clothing became a protective technology. Even our biology began to shift, favoring traits that could survive in a world where darkness itself was hostile. In the end, Earth became a strange battleground between two forces: light, the last refuge of life, and shadows, the unstoppable tide of entropy. And humanity's small, fragile, adaptive fint of self living on the thin line between illumination and annihilation. This scenario reminds us of something crucial. The universe is balanced on rules we often take for granted. Change just one, and everything becomes unfamiliar.
Wait.
If your shadow could hurt you, would you ever truly feel safe again?